Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Okay, so Malachi chapter 1 is our text for today. Again, we're gonna just talk through it in an unscripted kind of way, but I still remember the first time that I heard this message. It was a retreat, and it really pierced me, this conversation between God and mankind, or between God and God's people. Um, so,
Verse 2 starts out with
it's not verse 2. Okay.
God saying, I have loved you, and you say, how have you loved us? And later on in verse 6, how have we despised your name? And so one thing that stands out to me is these responses by the Israelites. They seem pretty obnoxious or offensive, and God is telling them, I love you, and then to say, how have you loved us? That just sounds so sort of outlandish. How can someone say that to God?
I mean, it's sort of a surreal conversation. I mean, this is not actually something that Israelites would say to the actual physical appearance of God. They might have said that in front of Malachi, because Malachi is just a man, he's saying, like, getting all ramped up because it's a prophet, and they're like, what are you talking about, Malachi? They would never say this to God, of course. But
so is this just Malachi recounting as he's trying to engage the Israelites, and like recounting their response or summarizing?
Yes, I think it's some sort of a
summary.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually even. It's necessarily an actual conversation between him and the Israelites. It's Malachi is sort of saying, this is how your relationship with God is characterized as this surreal, obnoxious conversation. So, and I think that's kind of piercing in that sense, because.
And even though it's so evident that God has loved you, their response is, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, what have you done for us?
Yeah.
And he has to recount. But God's response in verse 2 and 3 is a little bit odd to me too. Yet I have loved. Is not Esau Jacob's brother? Yet I have loved Jacob, but Israel I have hated. And it's kind of like, oh, I love you because I hate your brother.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, that's kind of a shocking language, but the language of love and hate is actually, you got to kind of understand it in the rabbinic biblical sense, which is choosing. When you choose, when you prioritize, it's considered love and hate. You see Jesus using the same kind of rabbinic language when he talks about, if anyone were to come after me, you must hate your father, your mother, your sister, brother, and even your own life. So it's like, wow, is Jesus actually teaching us to hate people? No, actually, he's saying prioritize me, choose me as a priority, and that's what God is saying. He's like, I chose you, Jacob, which is the forefather of all Israel, right? So
I have made you my people. I have made you the ones that I paid attention to,
and yet used, so that's the rhetoric. It's like, and yet you're treating me in this way. And how are they treating him? It's like, how have we despised your name? And he goes, by offering polluted food upon my altar. And then he just said, how have we polluted you? By saying that the Lord's table may be despised. When you offer blind animals in sacrifice, is that not evil? And when you offer those who are lame or sick, is that not evil? Present that to your governor. Will he accept you or show you favor, says the Lord of hosts? So it's basically like they're actually saying, oh, this is the unblemished sacrifice to God because God deserves everything. But then they're actually bringing lame, throwaway animals. And God is saying that is so wrong. Like, if you do that to your own governor, a mere human being, will he accept you? Obviously, you would never do that. But to me, you do that. So it just got me thinking about that, like that. The human propensity to dehumanize or depersonalize God, to make God an impersonal force or a concept that we need to somehow like use and abuse. And God says, no, that's evil, that's wrong, because I have loved you. So in the context of love and a love relationship, man, to treat that person as a blind force, to manipulate and use, that's just really hurtful. And yet I think that's the part that I felt really pierced by. I remember, like, wow, I have that propensity and I do that to God. Even though He has loved me, I somehow used sort of that there's a sort of that God is out there and He's a force, He's some kind of concept, and it's so easy to treat Him in that way. So, yeah.
And I would treat him in a way that I would even find offensive to treat a person that I can see. But
and then goes, and now entreat the favor of God and He may be gracious to us. Like, meaning like after doing that, you say, oh, God's grace is upon, like, God, be gracious to me. God is saying, are you kidding me? Like, what's going on here? Right? So
yeah, so the whole language that God uses to interact with the Israelites in this passage really shows that personal and relational way that God is interacting or is with the Israelites, because His language is so pleading. It is like a parent or father pleading, can't you see this about how you've treated me as your father? And that strikes me, because even despite all of this obnoxiousness on the Israelites' part, He's still explaining to them, He's still answering their questions, even the obnoxious ones, and willing to keep contending with the Israelites like that.
yeah, but it does feel bad though to be the recipient of such sarcastic language from God, right?
Yeah.
Or piercing language. It feels bad,
It
yet
can feel like guilt tripping.
Yeah, and yet this is an expression of God's love and longing for us. So that kind of challenges, I think, our understanding of love. Is it loving for God to say, like, this is evil? You're so wrong for doing this. What's wrong with you? Like, is it loving for God to engage Israelites in this way? Would it have been more loving if God simply said, oh, well, I mean, at least you're bringing me something, right? And being okay with that. So anyway, that's some food for thought. All right.
Have a good day.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.